Imagine being locked inside a wooden box, not for an hour, not for a day, but for 7 years. Imagine hearing your captor's footsteps every night, never knowing if he would open the lid or torture you again. And now, imagine this. You had chances to escape. You spoke to your family. You walked outside alone. But you still went back to him. Why? Tonight's story is not just about kidnapping. It's about psychological control so powerful, it rewired reality itself. This is the story of Colleen Stan and the man who convinced her she belonged to him. Hello, I'm Fadi. Here we uncover real stories that are disturbing, complex, and unforgettable. Now, let's go back to 1977. In Eugene, Oregon, a 20-year-old woman received a phone call from a friend inviting her to a birthday party. She happily agreed, packed her things, and set out on the road. It was the last day she would see freedom for nearly 7 years. Fast forward to 1984. A hotel employee receives shocking news from a relative news, so devastating it makes her collapse in tears. What connects these two moments? What happened between 1977 and 1984? This is not just a kidnapping case. It would later be described as one of the most disturbing crimes in modern American history. And what this young woman endured is almost impossible to comprehend. Let's start from the beginning. In 1973, Cameron Hooker graduated from high school and began working at a lumber mill at just 19 years old. Around that time, he met 15-year-old Janice. Janice came from a strict, deeply religious household. She wasn't allowed much freedom, and she felt emotionally neglected. When her family met Cameron, they approved of him. He seemed responsible, hardworking, polite, exactly the kind of young man they trusted. They allowed their daughter to see him. Janice confided in Cameron about her difficult home life, how unloved she felt, how her confidence had slowly disappeared. Cameron listened carefully. He brought her flowers, gifts, attention. He became everything she thought she was missing. To Janice, he wasn't just a boyfriend, he was an escape. But Cameron's affection came with a condition. If she wanted his love, she would have to participate in his hobbies. Janice agreed. After several years of dating, they married. 2 years later, they had a baby girl. From the outside, they looked like a normal young family. Cameron worked long hours. He came home with groceries. Nothing seemed unusual. Until May 19th, 1977. That evening, while driving with Janice and their baby, they saw a young woman on the roadside, asking for a ride. Cameron pulled over. The girl looked at the couple, a working man, his wife, their child, and felt reassured. They didn't look dangerous. They looked safe. She got into the car, and that decision would change her life forever. But before we understand what happened next, we need to understand who she was. Colleen Stan, a 20-year-old girl who had a normal childhood living with her parents and 2 sisters. But later on, her parents separated. Colleen got married while still young, but for an unknown reason, that marriage didn't last long. After that, Colleen decided to start a new life, and she relocated to Eugene with a group of friends, which was about 400 miles away from California. On May 19th, Colleen received a phone call from a friend inviting her to her birthday party in California and insisting that she attend. Colleen apologized and promised to make amends later. But, in fact, Colleen was planning to surprise her by showing up. Colleen got everything ready in the morning and headed to her friend's house. Colleen was careful not to ride with any stranger. She ignored many trucks and guys. She would look into people's eyes while talking to them to try to find out if they were good or not. Sometimes a person's eyes can reveal a lot about him, whether he's good or bad. Colleen rejected 2 cars that stopped for her until she stopped that couple, Cameron and Janice. Colleen saw them as her best option and felt safe with them. So she asked them to give her a ride and got into their car. And after that day, Colleen never returned home. Her friends waited until the next day, assuming she wanted to continue partying, or perhaps she wanted to spend the night with a friend. Keep in mind we're talking about the 70s, when phones weren't a thing yet, and there was no quick way to contact her. A few days passed, and Colleen's friends didn't hear anything from her, so they decided to call her father and tell him that Colleen was missing. The father informed the police immediately, and they contacted the friend, who claimed that Colleen didn't come in the first place and that she didn't even see her. Then they began looking for her everywhere. You're probably wondering what happened to Colleen that day. I need you to prepare yourselves, because I don't think you're ready for what you're about to hear. After Colleen joined the couple on their ride, they stopped at a gas station. Colleen got out to go to the bathroom, and while in there, she recalled Cameron's stares in the mirror, which were very disturbing. Her inner voice was telling her to run away, the inner voice we all hear sometimes and know as the gut feeling. She ignored it and thought, these people are a family with a baby, nothing scary. Colleen decided to go back and ride with them. But she was surprised by a wooden box on the seat beside her that was not there before. The couple told Colleen that they wanted to check an ice cave nearby, and they asked her if it was okay to visit it before dropping her. Colleen had no choice but to agree. They drove down a dirt road, and Colleen started to feel more scared. Then the car stopped in the middle of an open area. Colleen looked around, but she didn't see any cave. They all got out of the car, including Colleen. Then suddenly, Cameron attacked Colleen with a knife from behind and whispered to her, "You'll do everything I tell you to do. Everything." He blindfolded her and put her head inside the box in the back seat and closed it. The box was slightly opened around the neck. What Colleen didn't know about that box, when she had a bad feeling about it, was that it was a torture device, and she would be tortured in it. It wasn't just an ordinary box. The box was soundproofed with carpets. Cameron forced Colleen to stay in the back seat until they arrived home, and when they did, he led Colleen to the basement. Colleen entered the basement and saw torture devices all around the place. At first, she had no idea what those wooden and metal tools were, but she knew that she had fallen into the hands of a complete lunatic. At the beginning, we thought Cameron was a loving father who worked hard to take care of his family, but in reality, he was the complete opposite. After graduating, Cameron started having twisted thoughts about slavery all the time. He loved to enslave people, especially women. He even thought about enslaving and torturing a group of women. Janice was his first victim. She was tortured in the woods on their first date, but she agreed to stay with him because, after that, he cared for her and treated her differently. A year after their marriage, Janice got tired of his sadistic and violent personality and told him that she wanted to have children and he should stop torturing her. Cameron agreed on one condition: finding another victim to torture instead. He called the victim a slave. He wanted a slave to carry out his sadistic thoughts on her, so Janice agreed. Janice agreed on one condition: that he does not rape her, torture, beat, and abuse her in any way he wanted, but not rape her. Then Cameron spent a lot of time in the basement, making devices and inventing new forms of torture. He built a torture table and a huge wooden coffin and prepared the place for his next victim. He became so obsessive that he tried those devices on Janice while she was pregnant to make sure that everything was working fine. It took him months to prepare that place. After the birth of their first daughter, they went out to look for their victim. Unfortunately, Colleen was waiting for them and she became their victim. After Colleen entered the basement, her first torture stage began when Cameron hung her from her wrists. Since it was the first stage, Colleen resisted, screamed, and tried to break free. But Cameron started torturing her to stop screaming, and he threatened to cut her vocal cords if she didn't stop screaming. Cameron then left her and came back with the heavy box to be put over her head, and he put her head inside of it and locked it. But that wasn't enough for him. He also got a larger box, the coffin, and put Colleen inside before locking it. Colleen stayed inside the box until the next day. Cameron would leave for work every day, and when he returned, he would torture Colleen in horrifying ways that I won't go into. I'll leave it up to you to imagine. Colleen was locked inside the box for 2 to 23 hours a day. He only let her out to eat bits of their leftovers or to torture her. Cameron had some sense of creativity, so he decided to add something new. He wrapped Colleen's body with electrical wires and shocked her while stretching her. After a month of being tortured on a daily basis, Colleen lost 10 kilograms. By the way, Colleen was being tortured blindfolded, meaning she spent that entire time in darkness and couldn't expect what would happen next, whether he'd slap her, drag her by the neck, or electrify her. It's a terrible feeling to not know what's coming. After 4 consecutive months of that routine, he allowed her to take a shower. Colleen was wondering the entire time what was her fault, or what did she do to deserve such spiteful torture. But the poor girl didn't realize that when a psychopath tortures someone, he doesn't care if he knew them or not. That situation continued another 4 months, so 8 months in total. Cameron then allowed Colleen to get out for more than just 2 or 3 hours, not outside of course, but inside the house to clean and do some housework. He had to take her blindfold off so she could see during that short time. Her senses were all impaired because, as I said, she spent 8 months blindfolded, and she couldn't hear or move properly because she had been motionless inside the box for so long. But the worst thing was the psychological torture she endured. In January 1978, Cameron revealed something dangerous to Colleen. He told her that he was a member of a secret organization called the Company. It consisted of high-ranking and rich people, such as judges and police officers, who secretly enslaved women through contracts in the USA. Additionally, he claimed the company used advanced surveillance technology to monitor those women in case they tried to escape or call the police. First, he told her the cops won't help them because they were part of that organization. Second, that the women would be killed alongside their family and all their friends. For that reason, it remained a secret organization because any victim who tried to escape would be killed before revealing anything. Cameron brought out the slavery contract and ordered Colleen to sign it. His secret name within the company was Michael Bowers, and Colleen's was only Kay. The contract stated that Michael Cameron had full control over Kay, Colleen, her life, her belongings, and that she officially became his slave. Colleen had no choice but to sign, giving in to her painful destiny. Janice also signed the contract as a witness. After that, Cameron started raping Colleen, and things were getting worse by the day. Years later, Colleen began accepting her fate, a slave to that psycho. She even gave up the idea of escaping because she believed the company was watching her, and she was worried about her family and friends. She thought to herself, her life had already been ruined, so why would she ruin the lives of her family and friends as well? One day, Cameron decided to move with them and live in a caravan. The reason was unclear, but the relocation made things worse. A caravan wouldn't fit 3 people with a baby. Cameron decided to put Colleen inside the box under the bed. During that time, Janice gave birth to their second baby on the bed Colleen was trapped under. 3 years passed, and Colleen became more submissive and accepting of her reality. He also made her work in the backyard, and the neighbors met her and thought she was part of the family. He once let her walk around the block alone, confident that she wouldn't run away, and indeed she walked around then came back to him. Cameron was certain at that point that he had completely brainwashed her. One day, Cameron decided to give Colleen a gift, allowing her to call her parents and talk to them. Wait until you hear what happened next. You won't believe it. Poor Colleen was very happy and really grateful. Colleen called her sister and told her who she was. The sister was shocked and began asking her how she was and if she was all right. She asked where she had disappeared, what had happened, and where she had been all these years. Colleen replied, "I'm fine. Everything is fine," and she didn't tell her anything about Cameron. Cameron was very proud of Colleen and his achievement. He made her a slave of his own, controlling her however he wanted. He used to have to lock her up to keep her from escaping, but then he could let her walk around the block and talk to her parents while remaining under his command. Imagine that he then decided to give her another gift. The first one was the phone call, but the second gift was even bigger. He decided to let her visit her parents. Can you imagine how confident he was that he had full control over her? Unfortunately, he was right to feel that way. Colleen visited her family with Cameron and introduced him as her fiancé Mike, and told them that they were getting married soon. Mike would even allow Colleen to sleep at her parents for 1 day, then he'll come back to pick her up. He couldn't stay because he was busy. Colleen's family were shocked because Colleen appeared skinny, scrawny, and clearly exhausted, and they wondered where she had been all those years. Colleen was aware that the company was watching her, and she was not answering any of their questions. She only pretended to be okay and that everything was fine, but her appearance suggested otherwise. Colleen's family decided not to push her for answers, so she would keep visiting them. Cameron left her there and came back the next day to take her. Eventually, Colleen didn't reveal anything about him to her family. She stayed with them for an entire day and couldn't say anything. She completely accepted her life as a slave, and she couldn't say anything unless her master allowed her to, telling her when and what to say. Colleen was most concerned about the contract she signed because she didn't want her family or friends to be killed. After that visit, Cameron figured that he might have been too nice to her. So after he began allowing her to leave for some time, he reverted to imprisoning her inside the box 22 to 23 hours a day, and he started torturing her even more than before. That situation lasted 3 years, until 1983, when he allowed her to leave again. After allowing her to leave again to look after the children, don't forget that she was his slave. Colleen was surprised to discover that the children had grown up. The baby daughters were all grown up, so she began to wonder, how long have I been imprisoned? How many years have passed? She lost her sense of time. The question now is, what about those 2 little girls in that place? One of them was about 6 years old. Were they aware of what was going on around them? In that small caravan where those horrible things took place, how did they feel? They must have heard or seen something that will haunt them for the rest of their lives. 7 years later, Cameron ordered Colleen to work as a cleaning lady in a hotel. Since she was his slave, she had to work and make him money. He wanted to start profiting from her because he got bored of just torturing her, so he wanted to use her to make money. Colleen worked as a cleaning lady in a hotel, but Colleen was then around people, which was better than the life of torture in the caravan. People started to ask her about her appearance, why so exhausted and scrawny. But Colleen, as usual, didn't say a word. She accepted her fate as a slave because she believed she would be killed alongside her family and friends if she spoke. As time went by, Cameron's obsession grew. He wanted to enslave more women. He was bored with just Colleen after all those years, and he desired a change. He began building a torture cell in his backyard and made Colleen help him. He told her about his plan and how she would train women and teach them how to be obedient and submissive to him, just like her. During this time, Cameron tried to get closer to Colleen, treating her with less cruelty because Colleen was promoted from a slave to a trainer, which required a little more respect and a slight shift in treatment. He allowed her to spend more time with his children in order to get closer to them and play with them, and he told her that he'll consider her his second wife. August 9th, 1984. Janice went to see Colleen in the hotel and told her that there was something important she needed to know. She told her that the company wouldn't kill her if she tried to escape because it didn't exist. Janice told Colleen the truth. There was no company, and the contract she signed was fake. Cameron wrote it himself, only to keep her from escaping. It was all a lie. Colleen collapsed in shock and began crying hysterically. All those years she believed something that turned out to be a lie. She had multiple opportunities to escape, but she didn't because of the company. Colleen then gathered herself and quickly headed to the bus station where she called her father and told him that she was coming home. The strange thing she did after that, she called Cameron and told him she had run away and would never return to him. At that point, Cameron started crying and begged her to come back, but Colleen hung up the phone, boarded the bus, and returned to her family. Colleen's family was very relieved to see her return. They were worried for her and asked her how she was doing. Despite that, Colleen was still in shock, and she did not tell her family anything. The next morning, Colleen received a call from Janice asking her to not tell the police anything, promising her that they would work together to help Cameron become a better person. Surprisingly, Colleen agreed to collaborate with Janice to try to fix Cameron. Colleen still hadn't told her family anything about what happened. 3 months passed, and neither the cops nor anyone else knew anything, and Colleen's mouth was still shut. During that time, Janice was committed to attending sermons and decided to confess everything that had happened to Colleen to a religious leader. He immediately told Janice that she should inform the police and offered to go with her and help her. Eventually, Janice went to the cops. Notice that Colleen wasn't who went to the cops, but Janice. The cops did not believe Janice at first. But the cops went to the caravan and searched it, and they were surprised to find the torture devices and proof of Janice's story, such as the box, the coffin, and the weapons. They also found the fake contract that Cameron had forged. Then they searched the old house and the basement where Colleen stayed in her first few years. Colleen was then summoned to court to testify about everything. The court wanted to make sure Colleen was coerced rather than consenting, because consenting would change the entire case, absolving Cameron. But Colleen's behavior in court was strange. She was calm, only describing what had happened. She didn't look like an oppressed person trying to seek revenge. She also recalled some happy moments she lived during her painful journey. Colleen said what affected her the most wasn't the physical torture, but convincing her that the company existed and she had been a slave for all those years. At the trial, Janice disclosed a crucial statement. She told the judge that Colleen wasn't their first victim. Janice confessed that Cameron had also kidnapped a 20-year-old girl named Mary Elizabeth in 1976, a year before kidnapping Colleen. Janice claimed that he kidnapped, raped, tortured, and then shot Mary. She said they buried her in the desert. The cops tried to search for the body but found nothing, but Janice confirmed that she had witnessed the murder and the burial. She even remembered the date. But what about Janice? The court gave her full immunity, but she had to testify against Cameron. They considered her a victim as well, who was brainwashed and abused like Colleen. Although some people believe that she should have been punished because she was considered a participant in the crime. I personally agree, because if Colleen hadn't seen that woman with her baby, she wouldn't have ridden with them. Colleen trusted Janice and assumed that she and her husband and their baby were just a normal family, so Janice's presence in the car made Colleen trust Cameron and not be afraid of him. But Janice was acquitted by the judge. She wasn't punished at all. Cameron's attorney claimed that Colleen stayed with him voluntarily because she didn't try to run away, even when she got the chance, so she wanted to be with him. That statement was deemed nonsense by the jury because during the trial, the box was there. Everyone could imagine what happened in it and the horrible circumstances Colleen had endured. There was no way she wanted that. However, the judge sentenced Cameron to 104 years in prison. Cameron was imprisoned, and then, in 2021, several prisoners were considered for early release. Unfortunately, Cameron was one of them, but Colleen immediately intervened, hired a lawyer, and stopped that. However, in 2022, he still had a chance to be released. He would be tested to see if he's lost his sadistic tendencies and should be released, or if he hasn't and should remain in prison. Janice, on the other hand, changed her identity and moved out of the state, and no one knows anything about her. Colleen, on the other hand, and this is the best part of the story, is now in her 60s. She managed to recover from her traumatic experience and appeared in several interviews to tell her story. Inside the coffin, she imagined herself living with her family and spending holidays with them. Colleen resumed her studies, got married, and gave birth to 2 kids, and she joined an organization that helps women with similar experiences to hers. Of course, that incident is still fresh in her mind, and she still cries whenever she recalls the details. Finally, Colleen's painful story came to an end. Thankfully, she survived, and the criminal was brought to justice. Her case was regarded as one of the most heinous cases in American history. I'd really like to hear your opinions. We've now reached the end of today's story. Thank you for listening. The best is yet to come.